Hello everyone and welcome to the Commexis Cast Daily, all the news you need to know from our inbox to yours. I'm Matthew McGordy, the videographer and podcaster here at Commexis, and today I am joined by the lead strategist at Commexis, Philip Brooks.
Good afternoon.
So our first story for today, there has been declining Facebook reach that has been putting pressure on publishers' branded content, and this in part comes from DigiDay's Max Willens. So over the past 6 months, the amount of money publishers have spent to distribute branded content on Facebook has risen dramatically, according to Kiwi, a content marketing tool. In the fourth quarter of 2017, spending on branded content distribution leapt 159% year over year, and spending grew 231% year over year in the prior quarter. And worldwide spend on branded content totaled $5 billion in 2017 and $3.6 billion in 2016. In addition, over the past 2 months, the cost per click publishers pay for Facebook ads grew 16% year over year, according to Kiwi. So one of the reasons that this is significant, other than the increased costs, is that this in part plays into Facebook's algorithm change. For those of you who are not familiar, which I'd be shocked at this point with all the stories that have been about it, but basically Facebook said that they've changed the algorithm to focus more on friends and family and content that those individuals share and post on Facebook that typically garner more social interaction, and then they're going to be favoring things in terms of, on the content and publisher side, things that do, fuel that interaction. So that's been one major point, is that a lot of publishers are saying that they're beginning lower organic reach from Facebook because of this, as you would expect. There's been a couple other reasons. So, for example, Melanie Deziel, a branded content consultant who used to be branded content editor at New York Times and HuffPost, said that more scrutiny from brands and agencies demanding more detail about the people their content reached and suggesting audience segments of their own for publishers to use has also increased costs. A final thing I would like to add is that I think also the costs have gone up in general, not for the pay-per-click portion specifically, probably because more people want branded content, which I think is a reasonable assumption, though that's obviously...
Yeah, I think it's becoming a major part of most companies', content marketing campaigns and their overall digital marketing campaigns to create branded content. Even for companies that haven't really fully realized what their brand is, and that may very well be part of the issue, is that people are feeling that they have to jump into this marketplace because all their competitors are in there, but they don't really have a fully realized brand message or an understanding of who they are. And that's one of the things that we help with here, is helping people really define exactly what their brand is and what their company does. Sometimes there's a bit of a disparity between what people think their company's persona is and what it actually should be, or if they're trying to reach to a certain audience, they may be speaking to them incorrectly or speaking to the wrong audience altogether. So I think the biggest thing here is that you have to look at and see that with the reduced amount of basically space available to these companies in the Facebook feed, that the competition has gone up, and thus the price to advertise and go play along with the other players has gone up as conversely. So that's what's mostly happening here, and I think that it really shouldn't be any surprise to anybody that follows how Facebook is how they make money. What they've done is delivered something that sounds like they're helping out their users, but in reality really just says, hey, you're going to need to spend more money to get advertising in front of the eyes that you wanted to get it looked at.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that we've talked about a lot in the past when talking about initially the Facebook algorithm change and since then has been that you can't just depend on social media outlets and their algorithm to be your all the exposure that you're going to be getting, because then things like this happen, or other tweaks that you can't see come in and really mess up what you're doing. And then in addition, we've talked about before how, at least especially now that the algorithm change has taken place, it really has become a pay-to-play space, unless you're somebody like, BuzzFeed, who can get a million interactions or something like that just on their content alone. But even then, I'm sure they're not fronting a bill or anything.
Yeah, and keep in mind too that this is content that's being shared organically and dynamically by people within your friends and family feed. So it's not necessarily something that's being done. It's being done on the merits hopefully, of the content itself, and not necessarily because of any encouragement on the part of the content producer to get the content shared. And keep in mind too that this interaction, nobody knew this is what social media was going to be when it first came out. We everybody just assumed it was going to be an amplification platform for whatever they had to say, and that's how it started off. And now everybody, it's become a monetization. Like, I think the monetization of this has surprised virtually everybody that was involved in social media in the beginning. If you look at the people who made like Friendster and things like that, they probably are like, why didn't anybody tell us this is something that we could do? So, I think that's, it's kind of, it's a weird kind of growth model, because it shifted from a user-driven channel to a content and advertiser-driven channel.
Yeah. Well, speaking of content-driven, we have a story.
That's a segue, Matt.
I try my best. So we have, from Marketing Charts, 4 insights on what consumers want from branded content, and these were from surveys done by both Adobe and Advanus. So basically, there are four main points, and that is that what is the value of branded content first to consumers? So we're talking about why spending has increased, and to some extent it is either it's more expensive, but also more people want it, and they see the value in it. So the majority of respondents to this survey, 57% of them, said that they had made a purchase in the past year as a result of valuable online content from a brand. And secondary actions taken in response to valuable brand content include sharing the content with friends and family, something we just talked about. About 29% say they had done that, and subscribing to an email list, which was 23%, and just 1 in 5 claimed to have not taken any positive actions due to valuable brand content. And something in addition to that, what is the most important factor that makes people want to either share this content or even just interact with it at all? And respondents place the most importance on content that is accurate, with a 38% ranking as their most important characteristics, and 2/3, 65%, placing it in their top 2. And previous research has linked that mistakes and errors are the leading reasons why consumers lose trust in digital brands. So being accurate is important, but not just to be accurate, but also to be informative. 26% of respondents said that they prefer when their content is both accurate and informative. So I think, and perhaps the first example that really comes to mind with stuff like this, we talked about, figuring out what your brand is, but you don't necessarily have to have a pinpointed idea, though it sure helps when you're trying to create content that is both informative and accurate. And the first thing that comes to mind is, I believe it was BuzzFeed created a piece in conjunction with Ben & Jerry's that just talked about the history of ice cream. And it was all Ben & Jerry's ice cream there, but it was one of those things that I thought was both entertaining to watch because of the way it was done, but also, it's not like Ben & Jerry's, they were plastered on it, but it wasn't Ben & Jerry's saying like, oh, look at us, we're Ben & Jerry's.
Yeah, I think that's the key too. Again, something that we always stress when we're creating digital campaigns for people is that obviously blogging is an important part of that. Not so much as it used to be. It used to be a lot more of a fulcrum for digital marketing campaigns. But the idea is when you're writing a blog for a client, or if you're a client or somebody that's writing your own content in your website, you want to provide value. So you really, really need to look at what the people that are coming to your website are looking for, what your audience is trying to find out, maybe even to do some information, what are the most common questions that you get? That's a good way to kind of dissect what's coming through your feed. And find a way to answer those questions without giving too much of what you do away for free, and that will in turn build trust. And if you can create a piece of content that'll actually be helpful to people, they'll share it, they'll like it, they'll give it the boost that it deserves. But just putting content out there for the sake of putting content out there helps no one, and doesn't do anything to enamor you with any of your potential audience or customer base. So remember that when you're putting content out there, there has to be a purpose behind it, because that purpose has to be providing value for the reader. If it's just out there just because you feel like, hey, we're talking about this week, let's kind of chat it, make sure that you're actually looking through your traffic and surveying your clients to understand exactly what kinds of content they'd be looking for you from. It doesn't hurt to even ask. Just, if you have a social media account, ask them, hey, what would you like to hear about from us? What would you like to learn about what we do? What would make you, what are you curious about what our business model is, or our industry, that kind of stuff. If you can provide that kind of content, you're going to get much more buy-in than just basically tweeting out into the ether.
Yeah, and Marketing Chart's report also included things that respondents didn't like, which was they didn't like content that was poorly written or error-prone, which is obvious. You don't want something to have a bunch of grammatical mistakes. But specifically, they did not like content that wasn't relevant to a consumer. And then, what made consumers more willing to share content? Well, the top 3 reasons were content raising awareness for a good cause, content that was informative, not promotional, at 34%, and keeping a familiar refrain, and the content that gave them an incentive. So the top second reason was that the content was informative without bashing you over the head that they're a business and a service.
Yeah, and that all fits into the description of having value to the consumer. Whether it's a value, monetary value, or of intellectual value, or even just from it gives them that virtue signaling that they can say that they helped out somebody that in need by participating in a charitable donation. So again, it's all about providing value to those users.
Absolutely. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in to today's episode of the Commexis Cast Daily. Check us out tomorrow for more of the latest trending news. Have a great day.